First, they have to know who you are. And then there's a lot of steps in between knowing that and then buying. But just a simple act of let's generate reach and frequency, right? Let's tell people that we exist. That increases the probability of that person buying that product like 100%. Hey guys, what's going on? Hope you're doing great. Happy 2025 to you. Moving into 2025, I'm gonna tell you some best practices to help your business be more effective in its marketing endeavors so you can sell some more stuff or tell better stories or do whatever you wanna do. These are just some basic fundamental best practices that I think are maybe updated with a little bit of sauce on them to help you do better head into the new year, make your marketing more effective. Unfortunately, not to be the bearer of bad news, this is not gonna increase your revenue from 0 to 5 million overnight. It's not going to cause 1000% brand study lift. But I think it's going to be good. I'm not a scammer. I think there's too many marketing scams out there. That's not me. That's not who I am. I want to give you some solid best practices, some things that you can build your business on to help you do more effective communication and sell more product in the long run. So let's hop into it. Now, this is kind of a concept I've been playing with. I'm calling it base dependencies or marketing foundation. Maybe base dependency is a little bit too scientific for you, but this is basically just talking about 3 core fundamentals that I think that all businesses or brands, or if you're small or big or anything in between, should have. First one is a brand book. Obviously, we all know what a brand book is. I'm not gonna go super deep into it. I'm gonna link some good ones down below for you in the description. That way you can update it, make sure you're up to date. You wanna make sure your typography's dialed. You want to make sure that you have, your mission statement, your vision, all that good stuff. I think it's important to have that updated and good to go. It's not the end all be all, but it's a good thing to have as a foundation. The next one is what I'm calling web experience. And obviously, since we all live in the age where the majority of things are done on the internet and social media, having a good web experience is very important. And notice how I term it web experience instead of a website. A website is one part of a web experience. I think the web experience is all encompassing in terms of like how people interact with your social media, how they get from your social media to your website, all these things, and making sure that your site is optimized to convert is very helpful. So making sure that is dialed in. And I also believe that over the next 10 years, the internet is going to evolve in rapid ways. I think we're already seeing it happen with the onset of artificial intelligence, and that's going to continue to develop and speed up, I think. So we're going to leave that one, web experience, nice and broad for you. Just make sure your site is dialed in and people click the big red button to buy more. And then number 3 is what I'm going to term content alignment. And this is kind of just having a streamlined style across all of your social medias, because there's so many of them now, to communicate. I think it's really important to kind of convey a consistent look and feel, and that may be hotly debated somewhat. I know that like uniform grids are not in style, and I'm not saying you need to have a uniform grid. I'm saying the way that we interact with the consumers and stuff, if we're building a solid brand, which I believe is the key to driving success farther down the funnel, but the key to having that is communicating in a consistent theme and having some style, some pizzazz perhaps. And again, this can vary. Obviously, the look and feel, the content alignment for a small fashion brand is going to be much different than if you're selling HVAC or you have a lawn care business, or maybe you're just a baller lawn care and you have some crazy style. I don't know. Who am I to say? But make sure you have it dialed in nonetheless. Those are what I'd call the base dependencies, and making sure that those are up to date and looking good, making sure that those are dialed in and aligned with your business and your marketing is key. It's fundamental. So make sure those are good to go. My whole theme with this is marketing is not that complicated, kind of. It's hard. And the way that we interact with our, all the consumers and stuff is going to be different depending on the business that you are and the consumers that you're trying to engage. I like to have 2 or 3, core personas, or, with the artificial intelligence now, I've been able to multiply that out into much more in terms of what I call like micro personalities, because each consumer that we interact with is going to be very different. So we should be able to have content that serves that person. So the key here is to think about who are those people and what are they watching, and understanding how we take that and we align our media strategy to that. I think for far too long, maybe marketing has always been like, this is our marketing plan and this is how it's gonna be, and our consumers are gonna have to like it. And I think if we switch the mindset to be consumer centric with our style, if that makes sense, it really starts to change our perspective in terms of how we're creating content, what kind of content we're creating, what kind of media channels we're investing in. If we're doing paid media, having the same consistent brand and feel, but understanding the content that we create needs to be consumer centric is important. Marketing at its core is really an exercise in generating reach and frequency. If you're really good, you can do it for free with the algorithms, but that's obviously much harder and it takes a lot of practice and time and skill. And we can get into some of the best practices for that later on, or maybe in a separate video, because that's a whole nother topic. Or we're doing it with paid media, which allows us to be more targeted, but there's still several factors that we need to figure out there. And my key piece of advice for this section, I'll say, is to, again, think about, make sure you have your core dependencies down, making sure that's aligned. and then saying, okay, now that we know what kind of brand we want to be, what kind of stuff we want to produce, what are our consumers watching? What are they doing? And then finding the places where that intersects and playing in those areas, right? So if we're a fashion brand, and I think, oh my God, I cannot say the name, Ame Delor, right? ADL. My friend said you can refer to him as ADL. It's cool. But they actually started creating music, or like allowing DJs to come into their studio and mix. And you're like, well, what does a clothing brand have to do with DJing? And they realized, I think, kind of fundamentally, that there is a core intersection between people that want to wear their clothes and be cool and house music, which is freaking cool. And to me, those one of the best examples of how, like, if we're a business, we can find those areas that intersect in between the kind of content that we want to create and the kind of things that our consumers love. That's a great combination, in my opinion, in terms of creating content that the consumer is going to love, that is not like, hey, buy this shirt, buy this beanie, blah, 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 blah. It's, oh, here's a guy mixing house music wearing our clothing. We're not trying to sell clothes. We're creating something that is actually enjoyable for the consumer to consume, instead of shoving an ad down their throat. And again, that's not to say ads don't work or something like that. I think there's far too many cases of ads that the creative is actually not effective, or the experience is not effective. And again, that's not actually a knock on paid advertising, because paid advertising done correct can actually be more effective than the organic stuff, because it's the way that we're able to target it and the way that we are able to track after. Kind of the big issue with organic reach and frequency is the fact that there's not a lot of ways that we can attribute the impression that we had there to a sale down the line, versus when we do paid media, it's much more effective. There's many more techniques, I think, involved in being able to track all that. But I'm getting too deep. I can't get that deep. This is going to be a high level explainer. Got to keep it good. I'll make some more videos in the future to help explain it if you guys think that that would be a point of interest for you. So we have our core dependencies down, and now we kind of are understanding, maybe the tip will call it, being consumer centric while still remaining true to your brand and your vision. The third one I'm going to say is be nimble. As you can probably read about, or if you've probably seen online, TikTok is probably going to get banned, which is kind of insane, to be frank with you, because I personally believe that TikTok is one of the best platforms to drive organic reach and frequency on without having to invest a ton of money, and it works very good as an investment channel as well. When that happens, that attention is going to go somewhere. So the companies that are able to create and align content on new platforms faster than others are going to be able to leverage more free reach and frequency, because there's going to be a supply shortage in terms of the amount of content on a platform, which is going to cause a platform to distribute more widely your content. And then, as you can see, like TikTok or YouTube now, they've become a little bit more oversaturated with content. A lot of people are making content on there now, so it's much harder to stand out in terms of, you know, generating content and getting free reach and frequency. So again, those are just three basic kind of tips, I think, some good best practices going into 2025, and more of a different way of thinking about marketing maybe than they taught you in school, or if you didn't go to marketing school, which is also fine. Understanding how we can do this marketing thing more effectively, how we can communicate ourselves more effectively to our consumers. Again, these tips work for everybody, whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, a big business. There's obviously layers of complexity that get added in the more you scale, but this works if you're an individual and you want to market yourself. This works for anybody. I always talk about, and I love the saying, the most important thing you're ever going to market is yourself. So even if you're not in the industry, knowing how to do these things, understanding like what's the role of content and how do we influence people and how does human communication work kind of fundamentally, is going to allow us to live more successful lives. It's going to help us sell more product and establish better relationships with our consumers. Again, my number one rule, and maybe if you take anything away from this video, take this one thing away: don't overcomplicate it. I love this example in a book I read, How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. They put out a very basic illustration of two girls that live in the same town. They both grew up making lemonade together, and one of them moved far away and the other one stayed close by, but not as far away as the other person. Not that that matters, too much context. But the story is, the girl that moves not that far away, she starts to, you know, make lemonade, and she takes the lemonade and she goes ahead and starts putting ads in newspaper and telling people about it, and her sales increase. Obviously, it's not too complicated. The other girl doesn't, and she's having a hard time like growing. Why is that? Because when you generate reach and frequency, again, whether it's organically, whether it's with paid media, in any way you generate reach and frequency, more people know. People to make a purchase decision, first they have to know who you are. And then there's a lot of steps in between knowing that and then buying. But just a simple act of let's generate reach and frequency, right? Let's tell people that we exist. That increases the probability of that person buying that product like 100%, because again, they can't buy your product they don't know about you. So my encouragement to you would be make content, understand your consumer, and don't be afraid to go for it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't generate any content, if you don't generate anything, and you have no way of telling people about yourself, they're never going to even know how great of a product or service you do have. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. I'm going to be attaching resources as well. And yeah, looking forward to the next one. Happy 2025.